Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce. Joyce, I said this right before we started recording. I have a great way to open this, and it is
Which is
this.
a great setup to give away your joke.
Hooray for Fuckywood.
Holly weird.
We're back, Joyce, talking about the Emmys in the midst of a writer's strike.
Amazing. This strike just makes me miss the 2007 strike. Because that gave us so much amazing Conan content when he came back on the air with his really hot strike beard and just spun his wedding ring on his desk. That gave us the birth of Jordan Schlansky.
Mm-hmm.
And he had his feud with Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart. So just good times back then. I miss it. I don't think we'll have that this time.
No, all the late night shows have gone dark.
I mean, they could
SNL,
eventually come back, but obviously Conan is off the air, so it won't be the same, even if they do
yeah.
come back.
I wonder if they will come back because a lot of these shows also just go off on the summer. I was thinking
Yeah,
that
like
too. It's
Jimmy
like,
Kimmel, ever since the birth of his son, and his son's health issues, his son is obviously doing better now, but he's taken the summer off, like just
right.
full on summer vacation, and he's had guest hosts. So
Right. And a lot,
yeah.
and like Colbert takes a lot of time off. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see when this
And Corden is gone, so
Gordon finished right in time. I get the sense this is going to be going on for quite some time.
yeah, well, the last one was 100 days. And then, there could be more strikes because SAG and DGA also have their negotiations coming up. So
Correct. So maybe it'll end sooner if everybody strikes at the same time. I'd imagine that'll be impetus for the studios to probably want to get back to work. But we'll see. We're not. I gotta say, I'm not a labor expert, Choice, as you might expect.
oh, really?
Yeah. Sorry to disappoint you, but not a great labor expert here. But I am not really an expert on anything. But I am happy to talk about some things that happened in the last week, Joyce, about the Emmys, including as we were recording, we joked about this last week on Wednesday, that Sarah Snook would probably announce via Variety or some other trade outlet that she was going lead, and then lo and behold, that evening, multiple trade
It
outlets
was like 7 hours later.
reported
Yeah.
through sources and on background and shared breaks or whatever you want to call it.
Love a shared break on background. One of my favorite things as a reporter. Yeah.
Uh, that she's going lead, which we have talked about and expected, it seems. Still no confirmation, but like confirmation.
It is. Like, it's happening. And the deadline for submissions is May 9th.
Yes.
So next week. Today's Wednesday. So
and we had talked about this. We didn't really touch that drama actress category, but once I was able to, shot her right to the top because I just love her this season. She's an absolute goat, and nothing has disabused that notion that she would win. So I put her right at the top.
Yeah, where is she overall? Like, how many people have enough people updated that I know she's in the top 6.
She's in the 5th place overall.
Okay, so she just bumped out Helen Mirren as we expected.
She did. I have the top 6, actually. I have gone to the top 6. I have Sarah in first. I have Bella Ramsey in second. Melanie Linsky in third. Imelda Staunton, who's second in our odds, in fourth. Emma Darcy in fifth. And I have Elizabeth Moss in sixth.
Interesting. I have Sarah, Melanie, Bella, Imelda, Juliette Lewis, and your fave, Betty Gilpin.
I took Betty Gilpin out mostly on recency bias because I was at an event last night.
Like anti-recency bias.
An anti-recency bias. I was at an event last night and I was talking to somebody who is like in the industry, and they were like, I don't have time to watch new stuff. And I was like, that's a problem, I think, for my beloved Betty Gilpin, even though she's a 2-time nominee already.
She's a 3-time nominee.
3-time nominee, sorry. And is great on the show and is the whole show. And they're promoting the hell out of her on the show. I was just like, I'm not sure Peacock is going to break through. And I was just like, is this going to break through all the noise? And I was just like, maybe Elizabeth Moss will come back for Handmaid's Tale, or Emma Darcy for House of Dragon, which was very popular and it has the benefit of having been done for a long time.
Yeah, but I just, again, with House of the Dragon, I just feel like it's lacking passion. But it's lucky in, like, drama series where it's just like, what's going to be in the 8th spot. But I don't really think any of the actors are particularly strong. And then here in this category, yeah, I could see Lizzie coming back. I just put Betty in there. Well, as you know, I had triple Yellow Jackets.
Sure.
I also had Sharon Horgan, Bad Sisters. And I just got rid of them both for Sarah. And then I was like, you know what? I'll just put Betty in there for now.
I mean, I love it. She's amazing.
There's a very fierce Betty Gilpin hive in the acting branch. So
I definitely could see that happening, and she is unbelievable on the show. But I'm just like, it's no knock on the show or her. I just was like, I don't trust that people are going to give it the time. But maybe it doesn't matter, and she'll get in.
No, and it's like, we known this to be true. Basically, like no one has time to watch all this stuff,
right? So,
and it's still weird that so many things are still unfurling at this time, like within the last weeks of the cycle.
Yes, including you were saying White House Plumbers premiered this week
on Monday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bupkis is out tomorrow, I believe, or is it today? And the reviews are today on Wednesday. I think it's out
4th.
So tomorrow.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, the 4th. Mm-hmm.
So we both then think Sarah would win here.
I put her in first. Like I said this in our column, like if you asked me 3 months ago, I would say she probably would not win in either category.
Right.
But given the material she's had this season, and not even counting the tremendous buzz and hype that Succession has, like it's just hard not to call her the front runner, even if you're not completely sold on her winning.
Right. I think that's...
So she might not win, sure, but I think it's hard to argue against her being the front runner right now on May 3rd.
Right. And I actually think she has a better chance to win here, like we had said, than she does in supporting.
Yeah, well, not only because Jennifer Coolidge is not here, but she does have the weighty material, from Connor's wedding. And I do think that's something, that episode and her performance in that episode is something that will be top of mind or like instant recall when you're thinking about her on the season of the show, regardless of whatever happens in the last 4 episodes.
Which we can only imagine how good it's going to be based on how great the first 6 have been.
Tom and Shiv, power couple again.
Boy, I loved it so much. I loved this. Was one of my favorite. I actually think this was my favorite episode of the season, the last one that aired.
But you say that every week.
No, but I think I actually liked it. I was thinking about if I was ranking them. They're all good this season. I don't think there's been like a clunker in the bunch. But I would say like a lot of people would definitely default to the 3rd episode, Connor's wedding, because of Logan dying and everything. And that was good. But this was just like, I found this like peak what I enjoy about Succession.
I love when they do an event. This is like retired janitors of Idaho from last season, Imaginary Dead Cat. So I love when it's centered on an event. It's not a bottle episode. People don't know what a bottle episode is. It's not a bottle episode. It's just around this one event.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was just tremendous stuff for all 3 sibs.
That's why I actually really loved it, because I felt like everyone was given such great stuff. It was definitely like a Kendall top episode, right? Because like Kendall wins at the end. But even watching it,
a rare W for Kendall,
which I love because I do love my boy Ken. But I was like watching it again. I was like, oh, it's funny, like because I have Sarah winning and I have Kieran still winning in drama actor, and I was like, even in this episode, that's ostensibly like a Kendall victory lap and definitely like a Kendall centric episode in theory. Kieran was just out of this world in his moments in this episode, like still like just like peak, like dominating.
No, because all of them had things that revealed more about each character and advance them as well, and their arc, and not only their development. Like obviously Shiv and Tom, they're sort of do you play Bitey with your wife? No.
I don't.
I love that you watch the after show thing, because Sarah was like, I thought Jesse wrote that, but no, it's from Lucy, and she used to play that with her brother, one of the writers. And
also a funny thing in that where Sarah Snook was like, yeah, it didn't really hurt, and then
Matthew was like,
it really hurt.
And then like their conversation when he was like, come live in a trailer park with me, when he's like, yeah, I just wanted Logan's Midas touch, that's why I betrayed you. Like that was the most honest conversation the 2 of them have ever had. And it just kind of like flipped a switch in her, and now they're sort of like back on track, and they're going to host the party next week.
Can't wait.
Yeah, and then Roman just completely, he's not doing well. And, he pre-grieved, has not properly grieved, and it's manifesting in him just going on a firing spree.
So
And
the
it's
two
like,
the two scenes, those two scenes are amazing. Him firing Joy, gonna crush Joy, kill Joy.
he didn't fire, he just said, "You're fired," to her.
And then his sequence with Jerry and J. Smith Cameron, who I was like, oh, this is really good. That was just
That was
so
a great
good.
scene for Jay. Yeah.
And then the last scene, I was just like, this is like, that was an unbelievable moment when Kendall sent him the
deep fake.
The deep fake of Logan being like, he has a micro penis and is always wrong, always makes the wrong.
Yeah,
call.
and because we've talked about this before back in the premiere, and how one of Roman's traits is that he just wants the family or the siblings to be together and work together, but none of them have the proper model of how to do basic human interaction,
Mm-hmm.
and then, or just basic love, being loving towards each other and showing emotion, and then he also can't be strong in his convictions. He's sort of like a pushover. It's very easy to talk him out of something, like them talking about the 100 going after Piers. And the same thing here, the Shiv talked him out of doing the presentation with Kendall, because she's like, he's gonna bomb as usual, and then he doesn't. So then Roman misses out on the W. So I love the scene of Kendall walking in after the presentation, and Roman's just lurking in the background because he's just fuming because he made the wrong choice again. And he missed out on the rare win with
For
Kendall.
He had that gleam in his eye. It was great. It's just so good. I just love it. I love it so much. And we can use here, Joyce. They have the finale title, series finale title was revealed this week. It seems. So I had a hard time figuring out where it came from. I think it's from the HBO app, maybe, right, or something.
Yeah, well, the listings are out.
The listings are out.
Yeah, for the rest of the season.
The finale title was, drumroll, With Open Eyes,
which we discussed.
Now, you might remember, if you're a loyal viewer, that back in whenever, earlier this season, we discussed the possible titles because of the poem that it's based on, Joyce, right?
It takes all its season finale titles from Dream Song 29 by John Berryman.
Right. And so when we were doing this, I'm pulling up the poem again. So far we've had This Is Not for Tears, All the Bells Say, and first season was
Nobody Is Ever Missing.
That's right. And so we were going through it, and you were hoping for Hacks Her Body Up, which would have been great.
Which would be sick.
And I think I had suggested maybe the line right after, Hide the Pieces Where They May Be Found. And then I was like, what would it actually be, or what do you think? And you said, literally, With Open Eyes He Attends Blind. You called that out right away. And I was like, that does sound like a good one. And lo and behold, Jesse Armstrong, maybe a loyal listener on this down low, pulled that for his title. So I'm into that.
What do I get for this? Just pride.
Just pride and props. Yeah, I will say it's funny that 3 of the 4 finales are all from that one little cluster in the second stanza.
Right, and Nobody's Ever Missing from the last one. And nothing from the first stanza. We talked about that.
We had suggested The Little Cough Somewhere would have been a good title as well. That was from the first stanza.
Yeah.
So the other thing I noticed,
no love for the first stanza.
No. Maybe that means something. The other thing I noticed was that all of these episodes then after are Stranger Things length. They went to Stranger Things season 4. So this finale is an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, I love it. I'm fine with it, but I know, with Ted Lasso, a lot of people are mad that these episodes are an hour. Succession now going well over an hour.
Ted Lasso is a sitcom that was 30 minutes.
Sure.
And the difference is that its increased length is not always justified.
Well, we'll see if it's
I wouldn't even say
Succession.
it's even half justified. Whereas with Succession, it's always been an hour-long show, and it uses up its time well. And again, a 90 minutes finale, fine. That it's not like all their episodes have been 90 minutes. I can live with a 90-minute finale, just some shows have had 2-hour finales. I can live with that. And
It
yeah,
does seem like a
fun.
lot of them have a lot of the later episodes here are going to be well over an hour. It seems. I think it was an hour and 16 one, and maybe an hour and like 9-minute one or whatever. I think I saw. I'm all
Yeah,
for it. I love it.
that's fine.
I love the show, so I'm in. But I'm like that with
Yeah,
Ted Lasso.
this is like one of
Enjoy.
the shows where I don't check to see how much time is remaining in the episodes.
I
Whereas
put my
I've done that with probably like 92% of shows I watch. Like how much time is left in this show.
I put my phone down. I don't even look at it. I try not to.
I think that's one of the problems that we talked about last week. Like, are people actually paying attention to the show? Like, people are too easily distracted.
I get the sense they are, and a lot of times, again, based on a lot of the coverage we see about it, like it just seems like people are missing some key
Yeah,
aspects.
so like this week, especially after, Tom and Shiv had sex, I saw a lot of comments about like, how could Tom not realize that she is pregnant at sex and he saw her naked? And then it's just like, okay, remember that this is just like another day. Well, actually, it's 2 days, this episode, really. But this season is taking place over just probably like 2 weeks total.
Right.
And when every episode is just one day. So she just found out she was pregnant or she didn't find out she was pregnant. But she got the results and we found out she was pregnant in episode 4, but not that much time has elapsed.
No.
And it's like this is just a couple days later. And she also in that episode, that her doctor said, like, let's schedule your 20-week scan. That doesn't mean she's at 20 weeks. She's not at 20 weeks. So she just got like an amnio when she's way earlier in her first trimester,
Mhm.
So that doesn't mean like she's showing. And also first pregnancies, you don't show right away because it's your first pregnancy.
Right. It's true.
Yeah.
So that's Succession. I mean, I feel like we could keep talking about this, but you want to move to other stuff. We'll come back to Succession because I have a lot of listener emails, Joyce, that we could read that kind of tie in to Succession. I guess the other stuff this week, like we said, were some light premieres. So you were saying you watched the other two.
I did. They sent 7 episodes. Yeah, so right, 7. So I watched them. Very funny. Just completely coming for the industry again. And I feel like one of the jokes in the premiere was made for me because Carrie's movie Night Nurse is finally coming out after, COVID. And one of the pull quotes for the movie is under 90 minutes.
Awesome.
Like, yes, me, I will watch. And then yeah, there's some good Love Victor jokes and method acting jokes
Love that.
in there. It's not gonna get any Emmy love, sadly. It hasn't, so I don't think that's gonna change, unfortunately, but very funny. Just a fun watch this weekend if you're looking for something to watch.
And I'll stump here for Bupkis, which I absolutely
Your
loved.
favorite.
All the episodes are going to be on Peacock streaming. So even though Pete Davidson's SNL dreams have been dashed because of the writer's strike, you can still watch Pete Davidson on Peacock this weekend. Boy, it just is great. I thought it was so funny. People, I get the sense, I haven't looked at the reviews have broken, it seems. I get the sense that a lot of critics were not impressed. At least from people I've spoken to.
I haven't watched it yet, so I have no opinion.
I'm definitely on an island, it seems, of people who liked it based on just brief conversations I've had or seen with others. But the show's great. Don't listen to those people. It's very funny.
How are Edie Falco and Joe Pesci?
So Edie Falco is not in as much as you would think, but she's good. You know what the funny thing is? I read an interview with her that she did with Vanity Fair, and she was like, "Oh, kind of like." You kind of got the sense that she was just like a little like, what am I doing here? Why am I on the show? But I wanted to try something and be different and be funny. And it definitely feels like that in the performance, but that actually helps with the performance because she is like supposed to be like kind of looking at Pete
But
like, what
she's
the
his
hell?
mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
The opening scene is just graphic, truly one of the most graphic things I've seen. Not even going to spoil it. You can just watch it. It's good. And I was just like, I can't believe she agreed to do this. And then like it goes from there. She has a couple of funny scenes later on, like and she definitely grounds it in an emotional aspect because a lot of her stuff with Pete is more there's comedy, but it is more serious. And then Joe Pesci is absolutely freaking amazing. He is so good. I was thinking, if I was going to guess, it feels like a legacy sequel to Easy Money with Rodney Dangerfield and Joe Pesci, which takes place on Staten Island and is all about Rodney Dangerfield being an absolute fucking deadbeat who has to like stop being a deadbeat to help like get his mother-in-law's inheritance. That's the plot. Very loose plot. It's like a Happy Madison movie. And it's bad. I recently rewatched it. I have not seen it since I was a kid, and I was like, this doesn't really hold up. There's some funny Rodney stuff, but man, as a movie, it's kind of like a mess. And that's basically Joe Pesci here playing that same character as he is there, but just now as an 80-year-old man. And he's great, and he's so funny, and he's just classic Joe Pesci.
Did you watch Pete or the clip of Pete on Fallon last week when he was talking about casting Joe?
No, but I've heard him talk about it. What did he say there?
Lorne Michaels just suggested him, and Pete was like, "Oh yeah, that he'll be easy to get. You know, it's not like, you know, he's been retired for 20 years except for The Irishman." And Lorne said like, "Oh, like when it's or something like when it's the right part, like he'll do it or something like that." It'll be so easy to get Joe Pesci.
I mean, like, it's funny, like watching it, you're like, oh, I could see why he wanted to do it, because it is literally like comedy Joe Pesci. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just is like he's hitting punch, like he's just very funny. It's like definitely different from The Irishman and like a lot of the drama stuff that he's obviously done.
The show also has 10 million celebrity cameos. So who was your favorite?
So 2 faves. Bobby Cannavale plays Pete Davidson's uncle, I believe, maybe, or cousin. I'm not sure of the relationship. I think uncle. And he's amazing. He's in like 2 episodes. Very funny. I'm just a big Bobby Cannavale fan in general. And again, I like it when he's like doing funny. He's very funny. And I love John Mulaney. He plays himself in the finale. And especially if you watch John Mulaney's special, Baby J, it is a great like companion piece to that, because a lot of the story, like one of the stories that John Mulaney tells in Baby J is kind of like you hear it from Pete Davidson's perspective in the show, in the final episode. And they also are spoofing Heat while they're doing it. And it's very good. I don't think any of these, like, the problem with the show is that I'm like, hey, again, it's on Peacock, and who knows if people are going to watch it. But I was like, man, if Joe Pesci got an Emmy nomination, it'd be pretty great. But I don't imagine that would happen, especially when you have Harrison Ford already there as like a grizzled veteran, kind of like coming back here, doing comedies. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably premiering too late. I don't know. It's really hard to say how Peacock will do this year.
Again, like, not to like put too much of a fine point on it or like kind of dismiss any, like, I was just like, I think having this show specifically and particularly would be hurt by a writer's strike, because like Pete Davidson
Taco didn't promote it yesterday because yesterday was the Peacock New Front.
So she's not going to promote
pulled
it,
out,
right?
Yeah, in solidarity.
And then Pete is now not hosting SNL, and like it's obviously like he's so much like,
yeah, and he's a writer.
He's a writer on it. It's just like, it definitely feels like a show that will, because of when it premiered and because of what is happening with the strike, will not get as much attention as it might have otherwise. Not that I think even if it was, I don't think the strike would have, like, I still don't think it would get nominated for anything, but I'm like, I think that just is another
yeah, because so I have friends, colleagues in the Writers Guild, and I know like they've been advised by their strike captains or just the guild in general, like not to promote their shows on social media during the strike.
Correct. Boots Riley, I saw, did that. He said he was like, he's got an Amazon show coming.
Yeah, he's like, once if it starts, I'm not doing anything. So
hope you watch it, basically.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna get a lot of that. And then when you have like, so with regard to like the Pete Davidson show, just like not the best timing then for it, but it's very funny.
No.
And I think if people watch, I was trying to think of what it's like. I mean, it's a little like King of Staten Island, obviously, because it's like in that same vein, and he's like playing himself, obviously. Definitely like Louis or Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm, probably more like Curb and Louis than Seinfeld. And then also like Atlanta, because there's just like weird standalone like things that they do. There's an episode where he has to go to Florida, and he meets Simon Rex, not playing the guy from Red Rocket, but not playing the guy from Red Rocket. and it's hilarious. And then it also turns into a Fast and Furious movie.
You told me about this, which was great because in an upcoming episode of Barry, I think it's the 6th one or maybe 7. No, I think 6. They mention Fast and the Furious, and
So
there's a whole bit about Fast and Furious 6, which
great
is also
time.
the last one I saw in the theater.
It's a great time.
Or the last Fast and Furious movie I've seen, because I have not seen one since.
Joyce, you better catch up because the new one's coming out.
That's okay. I don't need to. I've only
You know-
seen 1, 2, did not see Tokyo Drift or 4, and I only saw 5 because I was going to see 6.
Interesting. I don't think I've seen Tokyo Drift either, but I've seen all of them otherwise, and I don't really care for the franchise at all. But I've seen them all, and I will see the new one.
Yeah, no, like if you were like, let's go see Fast 10, I'll be like, okay, fine, and I'll go see it. But I'm not. It's like another, Daniel Craig Bond for me. It's like I'm not dying to see this.
Right.
So
Don't tell Vin Diesel. He'd be pretty upset to hear you say this, I think.
I mean, I've seen 4 of them. That's fine.
I mean,
Family.
it's less than half. They're up to 10.
I mean, that's fine. Like I've seen it. So I mean, I think the first one is what matters, right? Like that's what started it all.
I mean,
so.
the first one and the fifth one, I think, are the key in the franchise, and the fifth one seemingly ties into the 10th one because Jason Momoa plays the son of Joaquin de Almeida, who is.
I don't even remember the 5th one. I remember the 6th one.
The 5th one, they have the safe in the street.
Okay, I like the 6th one because of the tank.
I don't remember the 6th one, but obviously the 7th one is the Paul Walker one.
Well, yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah,
that was great. See you again.
So I saw 6 on my birthday 10 years ago.
I guess I've seen 6.
And then he died almost 6 months later.
Right. I've seen 6 and 7 and 8. 8 was pretty rough. I saw that at Tribeca. I think it opened Tribeca maybe that year. And then 9 was out of the pandemic, and I remember going in to see it, and they go to space, and I just remember being like, "What the?" F?
Love it. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of like the tone of Bupkis. It'll just be like a lot of fantastical stuff, mixed with like industry stuff, mixed with like Pete Davidson doing true life stuff that isn't maybe, or that is like filtered. Like I said, I do think it's like a good companion to Baby J, and then also all the episodes are pretty short. So that's another positive for it.
Yeah, no hour-long episodes.
No.
Yeah, all of other 2 episodes are short too.
So a great time for comedy. And I guess if you haven't watched these shows, you'll have plenty of time to catch up, because if the strike goes on for about 6 months, they're just going to run out of stuff to put on. So
there'll be a lot of international imports.
Yeah, a lot of. I think so. I think Netflix will definitely pivot to that. It seems.
Yeah, if you believe the rumors, Netflix is like the main holdout of the proposed new deal.
I saw those rumors, and like I said, I'm not.
I think it's all of them.
I didn't believe that. I felt like that was like just like.
Well, I think it makes sense because Netflix is, the biggest beast.
Yeah.
There. But I think it's all of them.
I agree. I just felt like it was like opposition research from like another studio to be like, yeah, blame Netflix. We hate them anyway. Kind of.
Well, yeah, it's like it's lowest hanging fruit. It's like the most obvious one.
Yeah, I didn't believe that. But like I said, not a labor expert. Joyce, we could do some emails. I have so many since we last spoke, and they're gonna allow us to talk about a variety of different things.
Incredible.
I'll start with this one from Sam, who's a new emailer, it seems. You can email us at slugfest@goldderby.com, by the way. Sam writes, I listen to you guys every week, but I've never sent in a question. Since you've been complaining, you always get the same people. I thought I'd send one in finally. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. That's great. First, I got to say, it makes me so sad to hear Joyce and her friend not liking the season of Ted Lasso so much. It is my favorite season, and I think the funniest by far from a pure joke perspective. My question is, do you think Phil Dunster has any shot of being the final Ted Lasso main cast member to get a nomination, given that Jamie has a lot to do this season and so many of his scenes are with Brett? Thank you so much, Sam.
I have not watched today's episode yet. Have you?
No, I haven't actually. I will watch.
I've talked to people who've watched it. Consensus is not great, Bob.gif.
Yeah, but all the people you're talking to don't like it already, so I'm like going to take that with a.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Okay.
I mean, we could talk offline about the people, the ID.
Let's talk offline. I want to know.
That's not true.
Okay.
Because
they
a lot of them like love the first season or the first 2 seasons too.
Okay.
But, anyway, I it was funny because a couple weeks ago I was talking to someone about how Phil could be the Courteney Cox of the show and just be the lone, not get in. I don't know. I have thought about replacing Nick Mohammed with him because I know like he has had good material this season, and people do love him.
Yes.
And he started his press tour this week. A lot of interviews this week,
including one with our own website, goldderby.com. You can watch them.
So he did a whole press day on Zoom. But then I feel like if the reception to the show was overall stronger, because I think like not even like my own friends and like other colleagues in the industry, but I feel like the just viewers in general, it's kind of split, and like some of them are also not enjoying it as much as they did the first two. So I mean, you know, again, it could be completely different in the Academy and they could just still be enamored with it. But if it's not, if they're also kind of down on it, then that could hurt him. So I feel like it depends on how strong the show still is with them.
The insider I was speaking to last night suggested that they love Ted Lasso still, and it seemed like that, like and as someone who seemingly is like talking to people in the industry, we're still hot on Ted Lasso. So I think there is still a lot of affection for it in the industry.
Last year this time I talked to someone in the industry, someone pretty well known, I would say, and they were complaining about the length of Ted Lasso's episodes, which were not even as long as this year's episodes. Last year they were just going to like 40 minutes,
right? But
they were saying like, you know, when they get home from work, they just want like something quick to watch.
Sure.
And then see like that's long. So,
but I understand that. The problem I have with
like that was last season. This season, it's like they have hour.
Right. The problem I have with Phil, I feel like, is just I don't know who I would drop. That's the other thing. I mean, like you said, Nick Mohammed, but I feel like the way they've had him
storyline with him is kind of, they're trying to do a redemption thing with him, and I don't think it's been earned.
Well, I would argue that maybe I don't think the redemption has been not earned, because I actually think Nick Mohammed is a performer, and the reason why people really like Nate in the beginning, I think, is because he's like he's like a very.
No, this has nothing to do with him specifically.
I know. I'm just saying, like the character, it felt like the redemption is earned because the turn was him as like Nate pretending to be something he wasn't, and like the real Nate is kind of showing through here in this season and like in the earlier seasons.
I just don't, but like storyline wise, like again, I have not watched today's.
Yeah, I haven't either. So,
but I just feel like there should be more stuff happening between him and Ted, and it just like they're just still off in their own orbits, and they're just trying to, you know, give him this redemption arc. And it's not that the redemption arc is surprising, like, right. You know, I fully expected him to come back.
Yeah,
you know? But it's just like it could be written better, and it's just weird because these episodes are so long, they're so shaggy, and if they're just like not using the time well.
I guess I would say, like, I don't totally agree with that, but I would say, like, I mean, it feels like Nate coming back and coaching Richmond is where we'll end up in the season, having not seen,
which is fine, but I just feel like the way they're getting there could be improved.
And I also think that, like, for a show, and I guess maybe this is also indicative of like how it will progress with in the future if there are more seasons, and they've talked about how like this is the end of the arc and maybe not the end of the show or whatever, blah blah blah. But I was like, there's not been a lot of Ted and Ted Lasso this season, and that actually is, he's like, just
gonna move back.
That's like kind of like, that's kind of been an issue for me. I still like really like it. I've not had as many qualms as seemingly a lot of people have, but I was like, there is not as much Ted this episode that we have not seen today. I did not watch today's yet on Wednesday, notwithstanding. But anyway, Phil Dunster, I don't know. He's been good in this season, but I also am like, and he has been in a lot of scenes with Brett, which I think would help. And like Nick is kind of not in that, but I don't know who if it's not Nick, who would I drop out? I mean, Chris Perfetti somehow is still not in the top 8 in our odds, but I feel like he's such a lock for Abbott because Abbott is so beloved. But I don't know.
I mean, I can see him missing. I don't know, because sometimes I also feel like they could just be creatures of habit. It's like Phil has not been nominated yet.
Right.
And then it's just kind of is it too much like out of sight, out of mind? Like they're used to checking off these other people, or are they aware? It's like, oh, maybe it's time to give up on him. It's
Right. I
like
don't know.
he's not gonna get in. And now I have a restricted ballot.
I kind of think maybe that, because I'm also like, while he's been in a lot of great scenes with Brett, and like kind of, I just feel like he was not better, but I felt like the character had more to do, obviously, in the first season,
Yeah.
and had
I mean,
like
he's actually had one of like the best arcs throughout the whole show.
right.
So, um, yeah, I don't know. But like I would not be surprised if it gets 2 nominations in this category and it's Brett and him.
Yeah. Joyce, we got another email here from Brad, who I think is another perhaps new.
So many newbies, welcome.
Yeah, a lot of newbies. Brad writes, I have been able to keep up with the new series premiering the last few weeks. I watched all of The Diplomat, which I loved, Carrie for an Emmy nomination, and all of The Night Agent, which I also loved. But now I'm feeling overwhelmed with so many more shows premiering. We were just kind of talking about this. I feel like I'm going to wait to watch Love and Death and Mrs. Davis until all the episodes are out. What should I prioritize if I want to keep up with the Emmy contenders?
I would say Mrs. Davis first, just because that's more fun and exciting, whereas I think like Love and Death, like that story.
Right.
And
I agree. And I think I would argue, I'm sure Peacock would not want to hear this, but I think waiting for Mrs. Davis to have all the episodes out and then watching it would be not the worst idea, because it is.
Do you think it should have been a day and date?
Well, I don't know. I'm like always like I don't like. I think
I like
maybe
having the
yes.
conversation, like I'm old school, so I like the weekly episodes.
I like the weekly episodes too, and I think in certain cases it's great. Like Succession is a show that I think really obviously works as a weekly drop. And then I think some of these shows would work better with the whole season. Now, for Mrs. Davis, they kind of split the baby because they did 4 episodes at launch, because it really does need that many episodes to get you into what is happening. And then 5, 6, 7, and 8 now are rolling out weekly. And I'm like, that kind of works based on how I remember the show going. But also I watched in like 2 days, and I love that I was able to do that as a screener brag.
Yeah, I would say the first episode is the hardest one to get through, just a lot of table setting, and you're just maybe perpetually confused throughout the whole episode. But then things start to pick up into like the tone of the show really comes through in 2. And then there is a hilarious cliffhanger, I guess you could call it, in 4. So then it kind of makes you want to watch the next one. And then 5 is just like unhinged.
5 is so good, and like I loved 5 so much. 5, they're doing a lot of it's basically like Betty Gilpin and Jake McDorman as like internet commenters, like hearing about Mrs. Davis.
Yeah, and then it's just it made me want to watch Air again.
Yes.
Yeah, which I can next week. So
it's coming to streaming.
Oh, and then this week is the 6th episode, right? So this week is the heist, which I enjoyed.
Another good one. And I think like the show honestly would have maybe worked as a binge, like all at once, a simultaneous drop. But then like certain ones, I'm like, oh, like so Bupkis, they did all at once, like all the episodes are out, and I'm just like, that could have probably been. It's a fun watch, but there's no, to build conversation. Maybe that should have been a weekly one.
Yeah. And then Love and Death, they did 3 at drop, and then weekly for the other 4. And I understand why I did that too, because the end of 3 is when Betty goes to get the axe, and then it cuts.
Sure.
So then 4, which is today when this is live, Candy kills her. So you see some of the struggle, and then it's like the aftermath. And then the rest is the trial. Yeah, so and it's kind of like the first 3 episodes of that show is kind of slow pace. Like it's just kind of setting mood, and then they start the affair at the end of the premiere, but then yeah, it's like you're just trying to get to the murder, right? So I understand why they did the first 3. And yeah, and then it's kind of a different show like the rest of the way because it's about Candy's trial. And like this is when Tom Pelphrey shines as her defense attorney. Bruce McGill plays the judge, and Tom Pelphrey's character absolutely loathes him, and he just calls him fuckface all the time, but he says it with such disdain. It's amazing line reading. Yeah, so and I, again, I think it's, this case has been dramatized before, including a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
You watched Candy. So I don't know if you're trying to choose which one to watch first, I would say Mrs. Davis first.
Yeah.
And first before
Mrs.
or
Davis
they end the same day.
Yeah, I think the same day.
They end the same day, probably. Yeah.
I mean, like Mrs. Davis would be a great nominee, like we're saying, and I think it could break through in a lot of categories. But I think Love and Death feels like it would have a better shot just based on its competition and pedigree.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week. It got annihilated in the reviews, and again, it's if you were spooked by the reviews, it's not that terrible. Like some of the reviews make it sound like it's abysmal, like just hot garbage. It's not. It's totally fine. A very passable, serviceable show. And Elizabeth Olsen is great. Like she's the best part of the show. So watch it for Lizzie. Yeah. So if you're, I would say Mrs. Davis and then Love and Death.
I think I would agree. Here's another one from Sarah, another new person, Joyce. Sarah writes, "Hi, my name is Sarah, and I really enjoy listening to the show. I couldn't find anything about this online, but I was wondering if you guys think that Elizabeth Debicki is going to submit herself for lead or supporting for her performance in The Crown Season 5, and which do you think would be better for her? Thanks for reading, and also can you reply to this and let me know my question gets answered on the show? Thanks, Sarah." Sarah, I'll reply to it, Sarah. It's okay.
Well, oh my God, what just this like thing just started playing on my computer. It was like an ad somewhere. Well, they dropped her down to supporting. So, and I think according to Netflix's FYC site, she is still in supporting.
Yes. Do you think that's a wise move, Joyce?
I think she is a lead in the season, but I understand why they're doing it. It's all strategy.
Yes.
So
I could argue that she's more of a lead this season than Imelda Staunton was.
Yes. But I think they saw the reception to the season.
Yeah.
And they recalibrated. Because it was the reverse last time with Emma Corrin.
Yes.
Because they were initially in supporting, but then season 4 was bigger, better received, and people loved Emma as Diana, and then they decided to run them lead.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think so. If she's in supporting, I think there's with Sarah Snook in lead. I don't think that Elizabeth Debicki is going to win, but I think she'd be in the top third of that list of nominees.
So okay, if they were to run Imelda and Elizabeth both in lead, do you think they will both get in or just one?
I know. I think they both would get in actually, because I think lead is pretty soft.
It is,
and I think you would have Sarah, and you'd have Bella Ramsey and Melanie Linsky, and then the two crowns, and then
someone else,
probably like Elizabeth Moss or whatever.
Yeah, I feel better about Elizabeth in supporting than I do about Imelda in lead for some reason.
Me too, because I mean, I think if you watch the show, it's hard to deny that Diana was a greater presence. But I think Imelda had a lot of good stuff because, like, I did like the aging queen stuff that they were doing with her. But
yeah, I think it just, I don't think like that or her performance this season specifically has that much passion behind it, or I don't even know if there's that much passion behind the season in general.
No, it doesn't seem like there was.
Yeah. I think, do I have any crown men getting in? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't. So I just have the ladies.
Me too.
So they tend to do better in their even number seasons at the Emmys. So,
next year is going to be great.
Yeah. Like Claire and Olivia won for their final seasons, the even season. So Imelda next year.
And no Succession next year to worry about. No White Lotus probably to
There's gonna
worry
be
about.
nothing next year, okay?
Yeah, no Last of Us to worry about. So it's like no Yellow Jackets potentially because of the writer's strike. So The Crown is just going to be like the top dog in the 24 Emmys heading into the drama categories.
I mean, they better land that plane
I mean, they
well.
should. I was like psyched to see like the Prince.
The photos.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that because I'm like, I don't really care about them. Like,
Well, it seems based on the way they worded it, it sounds like that's the very end. It's like the back half of the
yeah, but I'm just like, I don't care. Yeah.
because like they'll have
I'm just not a royal person anyway. So
right. You email us at slugfest@goldderby.com. Here's one from Steve, who wrote Steve from Michigan. Steve writes, "Hey, Joyce and Chris, as always, I love your podcast and I don't miss an episode. Second time emailing. This time, however, I wanted to discuss the Emmys. Can you elaborate on the lead supporting rules versus the guest submission rules, especially when it comes to the cast of Succession? Obviously, it is determined now that Alexander Skarsgård will have to submit in supporting because he is in over 50% of the episodes, which is wonderful and he deserves to win. However, on the flip side, shouldn't there be a rule that you have to be in over 50% of the episodes to submit for lead or supporting? I understand Brian Cox has an ego, but he should submit as a guest. It only makes sense, right? Since the Emmys do only focus on the current season of a series, he was a guest this year. I don't think Logan's 2-minute cameo in episode 6 helps the case that he should be in lead."
how do we know Brian has an ego?
I don't know. I don't know if he does. I actually don't think
people
he does.
conflate him with Logan, and I'm like, why?
I don't think he does.
Like
Brian
people
Cox
conflate Roman with Kieran.
I don't think Brian Cox gives a shit.
I don't think Brian gives a shit where he is. So, the only rule is that for guests, you're only eligible in guests if you're in less than 50% of the episodes of that season. Once you hit 50, you can submit in supporting or lead. So generally, like a glorified guest star like A. Scars would be in supporting. It's like Sterling K. Brown and Maisel. Like he was overqualified for guest, so he submitted in supporting. Generally, they would not be as bold to submit in lead, but they could if they wanted to. It's like how Rob Lowe always submitted himself in lead for Parks and Rec when he was supporting on that show.
Right.
So like, if you want to submit in lead, go ahead. Once you're 50 and above. So I don't think we need a rule for lead or supporting. Like it's just up to them. And again, it's all strategy. It's like whatever they're just trying to maximize their chances of not just getting in, but winning.
Correct.
So if they think like they have a better chance in this category and like, usually your screen time or your arc that season justifies it, like Kieran and Sarah in this case. So you can go lead. So Brian, yeah, so he's in 4 right now, or he's appeared in 4 episodes. So he's still guest eligible. So, if he appears again, then he can't be in guest.
I get the sense he won't appear again, but I wouldn't put it past him to have like another quick flashback or something.
I guess they could show his body in the funeral, which would count as an appearance. So that would be fun.
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you think they should have a demarcation for lead?
No, I don't. And I think he is still the lead. I don't know. I know it's like ridiculous, but I think the show has 3 lead actors this year. I think Jeremy is still a lead. Kieran obviously is a lead. And I think Brian is a lead. Logan is a lead character. He's the character even still that they're revolving around. Like it's a silly maybe.
Yeah, like they're completely thrown off access. It's like, again, it's great to see how everyone reacts to his death, like even his senior team. Like, another great Carl moment. So David Raschi just serving heat this season.
I kind of think that it could get 5 actors in supporting. So Matthew McFadden continuing to crush. I felt like Tom this episode is great. And his scene that even with the brief amount of time, maximizing his screen time, and like the scene where he talks about like he's honest with Shiv about like
I'm living in a trailer park.
Just the best. I thought that sequence was unbelievable. So like he's great. Skarsgård obviously rules. Like could win. I don't disagree with Steven. I think Skarsgård could win. Eldest son Connor Roy, yes. Alan Ruck should get in. Nick Braun, I was like, again, kind of down on Greg this season, but this episode was great. Great Greg episode, I felt.
His best line was when he was like, it's kind of hard to make houses tech when they've been around forever.
So long. We've had houses for so long.
For so long.
Great. Loved it. So that's 4 then. And then I think David Rasche should get in. I really do. I think he deserves a nomination. He's so funny. It's obviously like Carl season. He's just eating every episode, feasting on this show, and he's standing up to like the lead stars in all.
Yeah, which is great because like if Logan were still alive, that would not happen. And that scene was okay. So I love how this episode also subverted our expectations of Kendall, because you think he's gonna just completely flame out on stage. He doesn't, and then he was doing his classic depressed hallway walk again, and then Carl comes up, and then he starts the combo by being his usual self, like just kind of like sycophantic kind of ass kissing, like PC stuff, like, oh, like let me know, keep me posted, and blah blah blah. And Kendall's rebuffing him, and then Carl just switches, is just like, hey, listen, your dad is dead, you can't be goosing up these numbers that I can't back. It's like, so fuck off and like I'll tell you to fuck off if you do this on stage.
I really think that he could get nominated. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that he get 5 actors in supporting.
Well, so where do you think Brian will ultimately end up?
Lead, and I could see him either getting in at lead or just not getting nominated. I don't think he'll get in supporting. I don't think you could argue that he's supporting.
But like if he submits in supporting, he'll get into supporting.
Yes, but I don't think he'll submit in supporting. I think he'll submit in lead.
Yeah, I don't really care where he ends up. I could see from, HBO's perspective that he should be like, they should submit him in supporting. But I think they're ultimately just letting it up to the actors themselves to decide. So
if they submit in supporting, if he submits in supporting, if that's what he decides, then I do think they could get 6 then. I think it could just be, I mean, like, I have a hard time believing that Matthew McFadden, Alexander Skarsgård, and Brian Cox, if he's eligible in supporting, would not get in. That would be 3. And then, like you said, I think Alan Ruck should get in. Nicholas Braun has already gotten in. And I think you can make the case for Dave Rasche. He's so good. He just really good. And if you like the show, you have to know that he's awesome.
So if you were a voter in the acting branch on this restricted ballot, you start voting, you get to this category, you have 8 slots. What are the names you're going to write down?
Those 6, Elijah Wood, and then I have to look who else I would put in. Let me see. I would put Elijah Wood in for sure because I love him on Yellow Jackets. I think he's been so good. And he's getting to share all his scenes with Christina Ricci, who's obviously a nominee and potentially a nominee again this year and is awesome. And then let me see who else I would put in for drama supporting. I guess my preference would be like Tom Hollander for White Lotus, of all the White Lotus guys. I don't think they're all standouts, but I did like him the best because I think he had like the most to do. So that would be my list. No Better Call Sauls then for me.
Okay. So how many people do you think will fill out the majority of their 8 slots with Succession guys?
Most.
They don't have time for the new shows. Succession just finished and they're just going to nominate 6 guys from Succession.
Potentially. I mean, the guys who I would be worried about if Brian would be like Alan Ruck and obviously David Rasche, because they would just be like insane if they got in, right? But like, I feel like a demerit for Alan Ruck is you could argue he's had not been in the show basically since Logan.
Well, he wasn't in this episode.
And he was barely in like the previous episode.
He'll be back. Like the election's coming up, so he'll be back.
He'll be back, sure. I mean, like, but like he hasn't really had as much to do in these last few episodes. So like that's maybe a demerit, but I don't think so because he's been so good.
No, because people remembers the karaoke scene, right. And then obviously Connor's wedding.
So I mean, he's great. And then like
he never even liked me.
David Rasche, I'm just like, he's so good. He's so good. Carl's so funny this season. He's definitely been like the top dog of the old guard. Even more so than Jay. Even more so than Jay.
Jay didn't really have a lot until this week in that scene with.
Yeah. No, she hasn't. And that's enough, honestly. I think she'll just get in for that.
Like for supporting. Yeah.
So it's fine. Just get her in. That was great. I do think they could get like 6 acting. I really think they could just go down the list, especially because we've seen that they're not afraid to go down the list. And I think the difference is now.
Well, they're not afraid to go down the list on an unlimited ballot.
I don't think they're going to be. I don't think that I don't think it'll affect this because I think the show is just too strong, and also because like a lot of these folks would have been maybe in guest last year, right? Like Skarsgård certainly. They are just going to like put him in here. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Well, he has to be.
I still think Brian will go lead. So I think we'll get 3 leads and then 5 supporting.
So when I removed Sarah from supporting, obviously I had to fill her slot. And then I was like, what if White Lotus and Succession are the reverse of each other, where Succession could get a ton of supporting actors and White Lotus will have a ton of supporting actresses, but it won't have a lot of White Lotus supporting men, and Succession won't have a lot of supporting women.
I mean, I think that's true. I ended up putting like Yvonne Strahovski back in for Handmaid's Tale.
You're just like back on Handmaids after.
I'm just like, I guess they'll just default back to it. But if I was going to put another White Lotus person in, I would have put in Sabrina Impacatore, I guess.
Yeah, I put Sabrina in.
Because then I also have Aubrey Plaza, Megan Fahey, and Jennifer Coolidge.
Yeah, so right now I have 4 White Lotus supporting actresses and 4 Succession supporting actors.
I kind of would love to see like either, I don't think it would happen, but based on my enjoyment of the show, Beatrice Grano or Simona Tabasco both should get in because they were so good. And I think they're like a pair. But that's the problem. I think there's not enough room for both of them and Sabrina to get in. That would make it 6 White Lotus actresses, I guess, or so.
I mean, there could be like a major snub. Like, what if Christina doesn't get in? Or Elizabeth.
I would be shocked if Christina and Elizabeth didn't get in, but I mean, maybe. You think Ray is safe at this point?
We don't even know where she's submitting because AMC sent their updated submissions list last week, and she was still category TBD, so has not decided yet. I think it's hard to say where she should submit because obviously she got in finally last year in supporting. So then it's like, oh, we know she can get in here. It has more slots. Should we just do it again? But lead is the softer category. And she's not the co-lead, but she's the female lead. She has a lot. She's like, you could argue that she's the lead, and people have, like, fans have done that the past couple seasons. So it's like, should she just roll the dice and lead? But then
I think she would get in lead if she was in lead. I think she would get nominated. And I think she probably should.
I would love to see her nominated in lead.
I do think it's like a lead act. I think it's a lead performance, I would argue.
Yeah, and she would obviously submit Waterworks because that's her tape. So, I mean, that would be helpful in filling out the 6 in lead if she were to switch.
Yes.
So
last one here, Joyce. We got a lot of newcomers there for at slugfest at goldderby.com. The last one here, those our old pal David L. Hi,
love
Joyce.
The weekly David email.
Hey, Chris and Gold Derby Goat Joyce. It's David L., not Grammar David. Hope you're both having a great first week of May. I wanted to let you know how much I really appreciate you reading my emails on your show. Thank you, Chris, for taking my advice about Molly Shannon. And thank you, Joyce, for backing me up and pointing out the obvious to Chris about the MCU timeline of the Marvels. I just watched the Tony nominations, and I was a little upset about the snubs for Oscar Isaac and Rachel Brosnahan and director Thomas Gale, but I was psyched to hear last week that TV Line reported Sarah Snook will go lead at the Emmys. Speaking of changing categories, since John Oliver is moving into variety scripted series, do you think he could beat SNL? And now that he's finally gone, which host do you think will win in talk series? I'm rooting for Jimmy Kimmel, but I'm also afraid it'll be Stephen Colbert. Also, Chris, how many times did you vote for Camila Mendes and Maya Hawke as best duo for Do Revenge at the MTV Movie Awards and TV Awards? You're a loyal listener, David L. Well, David, I appreciate being seen. And yes, I voted hundreds of times for Camila Mendes and Maya Hawke.
Do you have to create accounts to do that?
I didn't actually vote, Joyce. I'll tell you this.
Wow, I can't believe you just lied on the record.
It just comes so naturally. I didn't vote yet, but I would create bot accounts to do it, and I do think they should win. Do revenge roles. Camila Mendes, best actress snub of last year.
Who are they up against?
Let's see, the best duo. I think it's a Last of Us. Let me see. Movie, MTV Awards, MTV, not me. This thing, scintillating stuff.
I don't know any of these new categories. Like I miss the old school movie awards.
Yeah. So best duo is Camila Mendes and Maya Hawke for Do Revenge. Jenna Ortega and Thing for Wednesday. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey for The Last of Us. Simona Tabasco and Beatrice Grano for White Lotus, and Miles Teller and Tom Cruise for Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, your fave.
This
How
is
could
like
you
a
betray them?
really
This
good
is so
category.
hard for you.
This is a tough category because I love Simone. I was just literally just talking about how good they were in White Lotus, and Miles and Tom. I'll tell you this: Tom Cruise is a solo act. Miles Teller, bless, love him so much, but they're not a duo in Top Gun Maverick. Miles Teller is supporting.
We didn't even
Maverick.
talk about Jeremy Strong immediately texting Michelle Matlin, the costume designer, being like, I need a flight suit for the launch. And then they took inspo from Top Gun.
Obviously, why wouldn't they? I'm sure that Top Gun is Kendall's favorite movie. They're not a duo, so cross them off. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, I also would argue, are not necessarily a duo. I cross them off too.
Yeah, they have
they're together.
singular moments.
Yes.
A lot, yeah.
So that leaves us with Simona Tabasco and Beatrice Grano, Jenna Ortega and The Thing, or just Thing, it's cleaner, and Camila Mendes and Maya Hawke. Simona Tabasco and Beatrice Grano, if they won an MTV Movie and TV Award, I would be like, that would be the craziest thing I've ever seen. So I'm going to cross them off just because no way. I'm sorry. There's no way that can happen. So you're left with Jenna Ortega and Camila Mendes and Maya Hawke. I feel like Jenna Ortega is like the biggest star in the world, especially for the MTV crowd or whenever is the MTV crowd in 2023. But I think that Camila and Maya could win for Do Revenge. I just do. I'm going to stick with them.
Okay. Do you have your Stan goggles on or off while you're doing this?
I think they're on.
I love Thing in Wednesday. So if I were to create an account, I would vote for them.
So Joyce,
just amazing hand acting.
Really good hand acting. It was really cool watching how they did it. There's like behind the scenes stuff you could see. It's really incredible. The other questions for David. So we had actual questions there. John Oliver moving into variety scripted. Do you think that Last Week Tonight can beat SNL?
Yes.
Do you think it will?
Probably. I feel like they're just so lazy, and then it's just like they see John Oliver's name and then they'll just check it off. It doesn't even matter what category it is.
We talked last year, and I think we've talked about this many times. This last season of SNL that is seemingly now finished because of the writer's strike was more well received than the previous season. And the previous season showed signs of erosion at the Emmys, right? It lost directing, I think, to Black Lady Sketch Show, which was an upset. It still won.
It only got 9 nominations.
Still won in its category, but like not
2
as
nominees, so
not as much of a juggernaut as it had been. So it feels like it's ripe to lose, even though this season was better, I think, than last season. I think it would lose to John Oliver.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about Schmigadoon.
Right.
Changing its submission. It's submitting in this now scripted variety, even though it is a scripted narrative series with musical numbers, just like Glee, just like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. But again, strategy. They just going for it. So it's fraud, but it's unless the Academy says no, then
it's not fraud.
They're allowed.
Yeah, I don't think Schmigadoon's going to win here.
Yeah, I think it would just go to John Oliver.
And then who do you think replaces John Oliver in late night talk?
I would hope Seth Meyers would win. That's what I want. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either. I think David was hoping for Jimmy Kimmel, seems.
Right. I would be fine with that too. He's been around 20 years.
I do think it'll be Stephen Colbert also, though. I just feel like he's got the most juice for some reason.
It's weird because what was it? 2017, I think. That was the year he hosted, right? Yeah. That was the year where a lot of people thought he could win, because that was his second year hosting Late Show, and like the notion was that, oh, like, you know, he got the first year on the belt and this second year was great because obviously of the election too. And I remember people thinking he could actually win, and he didn't. So
I thought he would have won a couple, like, still think his pandemic shows were the best of his whole run when he was doing it at home. He was the first host to do it from home. All the hosts followed after, and he was like rejuvenated, I felt like, in those shows. And so I think he should have won then. I don't know if he win now. I kind of think, like we said, like all these, if you like these shows, there's no like, none of the shows are getting better or worse. I never feel like with the late night shows, it is all about the consistency. And it's just like, if you like Jimmy Kimmel, you will still like Jimmy Kimmel now, whether, you know, or last season, you know what I mean? And same with Colbert. So I'm just trying to figure out like who would be the most beloved. I do think Colbert maybe gets the slight edge over Kimmel, but I don't know. I don't think it'll be
yeah,
so
I mean, if you're just
obvious.
going by like, oh, he's won for Colbert Report
Right.
before, and then his election thing won a couple years ago, you know, the live election thing, variety
Right.
special.
So that's kind of why I would put him in to win Colbert.
Yeah. Because it's just been Daily Show between John Oliver and Jon Stewart and Colbert Report. And what was the last? Was, I think Letterman was the last broadcast talk show to win. And that was like, so Jon Stewart premiered in 2003, so 2002, right? Let me see. Variety. Yeah, 2002. Late Show of David Letterman, variety series. And then Jon Stewart went on a tear.
And then John Oliver.
With a couple Colberts in between.
Right. So I think it would go back to Colbert.
So
we can't predict this yet, but I'm excited when we can.
It's just funny how hard they're trying to like end Daily Show's streak, basically, and also like SNL streak. So it's like, oh, let's have these two shows that just keep winning face off against each other.
Last week tonight, yeah,
last week tonight. So
again, you can email us at slugfest@goldderby.com. I guess we'll wrap up here, Joyce. We have next week. We'll get to talk about Air coming to Amazon. Comes on May 12th. I'm excited.
Which is too early, if you ask me.
I kind of was I was actually surprised because we spoke about this when we first announced, and we both pegged June to go
for the finals.
NBA finals, and it seemed like, again, another big, you know, give it a lot of runway in the theaters. But I guess they must realize that it's kind of peaked.
I mean, it's still doing okay. Like it I don't know where it's at right now, but like its drops have been good.
Worldwide, it's about, I think, 70 or 80 million. It's right around like Don't Worry Darling numbers.
I think it's like around 50 right now domestically. So I mean, they could definitely try to eke out another month before the finals.
Yeah.
So, but you know, it is what it is. And I don't know what else is next week. Nothing's premiering. It's too late. It's too close to May 31st.
This more Succession will have another great.
It's a tailgate party. We finally get to see Asgard's gold jacket.
Can't wait. It's gonna be great. Best costume design, Succession. Just, this is so much fun. Well, we'll sign off and I'll talk to you later. Bye.